We just stall time.
Chapter 11.
This is actually running. Oh, no, it hasn't. Yep, live video is starting. So they're watching you do what you're doing right now.
Are we live?
Yes.
Hello, this is George.
And Bonnie.
And we're coming to you from home. And after a bit, we're going to be going over Numbers 11.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to tell you something. When we're out on the road and when we're sitting around here, we believe Adonai talks, has us write stuff down. And he's got one little piece of paper that I think I'm going to have to read tonight before we get into Numbers 11. And here's what it says. For over 2 months, we have been going over the section of Adonai's letter called Numbers. So far in our studies, we have heard the commandments, rules, regulations, and yes, a few laws told over and over and over again. By this time, from our studies, we should realize that the journey of Israel wasn't just a cakewalk to get out of Egypt and to the Promised Land. The Hebrews had to divorce themselves from 400 years of brainwashing. Ever think about that? Much like the 392 years of brainwashing by Jerome. Numbers starts at the foot of Mount Sinai, and since we started this journey, we learned about them not having faith, not always in Adonai, but complaining when they don't see things go their way, whining when they don't get what they think they should, and grumbling about a lot of the things Adonai gives them. Well, again, does that sound familiar today? A number of times since that Catholic priest, Jerome, the Christians have copied Israel. Oh, what do you mean? The so-called Christians have copied Israel. Yet, so-called Christians, much like the Hebrews, would never admit their unbelief in Yeshua because of Jerome's imitation. We should have learned our lesson by studying about the Hebrews. But we don't. The majority, billions upon billions, should be taking another 40-year trip through the wilderness to find truth. Not putting their heads in the sand because you are comfortable with the same imitation the Hebrews got in Egypt, only now you receive your brainwashing from the small Antichrist in the building called church. Now that's a harsh statement, but true. If they teach or preach something that isn't true, and many know that the name they use for our Messiah, he was never, not one time, called when he walked the earth. Yet those so-called leaders made up another brainwashing by stating, it doesn't matter what name you use. That puts frosting on their cake, leading you to their damnation. People, you take a bite of their cake, and you like that imitational flavor. Let's hope you notice that Adonai instructed Moses over and over to tell the Hebrews rules, commandments, and regulations, yet they usually had a tragic outcome because of their lack of real belief. Today, there is grumbling when you hear truth. Brainwashed to the point of defiance towards Yeshua, his son. When Yeshua does come back, you will receive your discipline and then death without his son forever. Our point is, so far in Numbers, it is a copy of what should be given to people today. And yes, we believe it's another 40-year journey because of there and now you're turning against Adonai and his truth. How much has changed? So people, when will you start your 40-year journey? That was a little added frosting on the cake.
Bonus.
Bonus. That's my sweetie said. Bonus.
A little bonus.
Okay, now we'll get started with 11. Numbers 11. Oh, let's have a... Everything is going to be fantastic from now on. Well, that lasts until the very next verse. Adonai seems to get a little angry. Now, wait a minute. We have heard from almost every pulpit, God doesn't show that much emotions. Read Numbers 11:1, please.
But the people began complaining about their hardships to Adonai. When Adonai heard this, his anger flared up, so that fire from Adonai broke out against them and consumed the outskirts of their camp.
Did you say his anger flared up?
That's what it says.
That must be a misprint. How about the other translations we use? His anger, it says his anger arose. His wrath flared up. His anger was kindled. He became angry. And one says he glowed in anger. That was from the writings of 9 different translations that we try to look stuff up in. Now the word A-N-A-P-H, with a little tent over the A, in Hebrew pronounced Anah, A-W-N-A-F, Anah. It states that, and that one word is where the Hebrews would have used, to breathe hard, to be enraged, be angry. But then those preachers state he may get angry, but he doesn't show or do anything in his anger. Well, let's see what number 11:1 says again. Read Numbers 11:1. He doesn't show his anger.
But the people began complaining about their hardships to Adonai. When Adonai heard it, his anger flared up, so that fire from Adonai broke out against them and consumed the outskirts of the camp.
Fire from Adonai broke out against the people and burned the outskirts of the camp? Wait a minute. That's not anger?
I wouldn't want him that.
Sure sounds like that to me. George is real quiet today. And he's back.
Yeah, he's back. Yay. And hey, Ann and Mary Bob from Kentucky.
Ann and Mary Bob from Kentucky. It states so that fire from Adonai went out against them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. The 2 words used in that verse mean to burn up and to be consumed by fire. So the translations, you might say, must be telling the truth. That Adonai's anger burned by fire against them and around their camp. That is, until they went crying to Moses. Didn't we state not long ago the people would again complained to Moses and Adonai. We read about that all the time. They goof up, they complain to Moses and Adonai. So my sweetie's going to read Numbers 11, 2 and 3.
Then the people cried to Moses. Moses prayed to Adonai, and the fire abated. That place was called
Taberah.
Means burning, because Adonai's fire burned out against them.
It was then that the people started calling that place Taberah, which actually means burning. So Scripture's actually pointing out that there was a fire that came down and was burning.
Mm-hmm.
They even call the place that. Read 11:4, please.
Next, the mixed crowd that was with them grew greedy for an easier life, while the people of Israel, for their part, also renewed their weeping and said, "If only we had meat to eat."
Now, the one part that caught my attention there was the mixed crowd. Go to Exodus 12:38, please.
A mixed crowd also went up with them, as well as the livestock in large numbers, both flocks and herds.
That shows the mixed crowd may have been Egyptians and possibly others who went out with the Hebrews, or were now with the Hebrews. It could be Aspasop, ACP, little comma, CUPF, Aspasop. If that is the original word used there it pertains to a promiscuous assembly of people, a mixed multitude. We like how the complete Jewish Bible states it. Israel, for their part, also renewed their weeping. They didn't get what they want, so they renewed their weeping. Read 5 and 6, please.
We remember the fish we used to eat in Egypt. It cost us nothing. And the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, the garlic. But now we are withering away. We have nothing to look at but this man.
The fish and those melons, cucumbers, leeks, onions, and that garlic, it never cost us anything in Egypt. Look what we had. We were slaves, but look what we had. The only thing we have to eat here is man. No, it's really manna, in other words, bread. Before you complain about the Israelites. What's that word?
Israelites?
Yeah. Think if you ate bread and only bread for years. Now, Adonai and Moses would most likely look the other way, right?
I don't think so.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Read 10, please.
Moses heard the people crying, family after family, each person at the entrance to his tent. The anger of Adonai flared up violently, and Moses too was displeased.
That reading shows you the people and Moses also was a little perturbed, I'd say. Yet it states the anger of Adonai flared up. Read 11 through 14, please.
Moses asked Adonai, "Why are you treating your servant so badly? Why haven't I found favor in your sight, so that you put the burden of this entire people on me? Did I conceive this people? Was I their father, so that you tell me, carry them in your arms, like a nurse carrying a baby, to the land you swore to their ancestors? Where am I going to get meat to give to this entire people? Because they keep bothering me with their crying and saying, 'Give us meat to eat.' I can't carry this entire people by myself. It's too much for me.
Moses shows his frustrations here. This is getting too much for me. Their weeping anger and their constant complaining. Why are you, Adonai, treating me, your servant, so badly? Sounds like he's having a little pity party.
Well, he's been dealing with a lot.
Would you say Moses has hit the breaking point?
You-
Read 15, please.
If you are going to treat me this way, then just kill me outright. Please, if you have any mercy toward me, and don't let me go on being this miserable.
Talk about whining. If you, Adonai, are going to treat me like this, then come on, just kill me right here. I'm so miserable. Adonai says, Moses, all right, you want some help. What does he do? Read 16 and 17, please.
Adonai says to Moses, bring me 70 of the leaders of Israel, people you recognize as leaders of the people and officers of theirs. Bring them to the tent of meeting and have them stand there with you. I will come down and speak with you there, and I will take some of the Spirit which rests on you and put it on them. Then they will carry the burden of the people along with you, so that you won't carry it yourself alone.
Moses, you want help? I'll give you some help. Bring 70 leaders of Israel and have them stand with you. Bring them to the tent of meetings. I'll put some of the Spirit that's on you now and put some on them. Then they can help you, Moses. Talk about that agitation. You might say that came from Adonai. Moses, I'm tired of you complaining. Read 18 through 20, please.
Tell the people, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, and you will eat meat, because you cried in the ears of Adonai. If only we had meat to eat. We had the good life in Egypt. All right, Adonai is going to give you meat, and you will eat it. You won't eat it just one day, or 2 days, or 5, or 10, or 20, but a whole month, until it comes out of your nose and you hate it, because you have rejected Adonai, who is here with you, and distressed him with all your crying and asking, why did we ever leave Egypt?
Moses, because of their whining, they will get what they want until they hate it. Then it even says, you distress Adonai with your crying, and you make statements like, why did we leave Egypt? See, we know the whole story. We didn't live and walk with them.
Mm.
We didn't feel their pain and their frustrations, and they're only eating bread for 2 years. See, we got it easy by looking back at it and reading it, but we didn't live it. We're living this stuff when they're turning their backs on Yeshua right now. I'll get back to 11 now. Then you would have to say that Moses just may be losing his drive by asking Adonai something. Read 21 and 22.
But Moses said, here I am with 600,000 men on foot, and yet you say I will give them meat to eat for a whole month. If whole flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, would it be enough? If all the fish in the sea were collected for them, would even that be enough? Oh, 22.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I did. 21, 22.
Okay.
Sorry.
If we kill all the herds for them, would that be enough? How about all the fish in the sea we can catch? Would that be enough for them? Would that be enough so they wouldn't complain? Like he said, it might be enough for a month. We like how Adonai answers Moses in 23. Read 23, please.
Adonai answered Moses, "Has Adonai's arm grown short? Now you will see whether what I said will happen or not."
You got to picture this. Adonai looking at Moses and saying, come on, Moses, is Adonai's arm too short now? How about all the rest of that time? After all this happening to and for Israel, Adonai tells Moses, now you will see. That's interesting. Tells Moses, now you will see. Read 24 and 25, please.
Moses went out and told the people what Adonai had said. Then he collected 70 of the leaders of the people and placed them all around the tent. Adonai came down in a cloud, spoke to him, took some of the spirit that was on him and put it on the 70 leaders. When the spirit came to rest on them, they prophesied. Then, but not afterwards.
We never realized it was a one-time thing when Adonai came down in the cloud to them. When he spoke to them, they prophesied then, but not afterwards. Isn't that what your last statement was?
Mm-hmm. But not
They
afterwards.
did not do it again with Adonai there. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You ever seen that before, George?
No.
He said no. He talks funny now. It seems that Adonai was more than just be with the men around the tent. It seems that Adonai did more than just be with the men around the tent. Now, what do I mean there? I don't know. Read 26.
There were two men who stayed in the camp, one named Eldad and the other Medad, and the Spirit came to rest on them. They were among those listed to go out to the tent, but they hadn't done so, and they prophesied in the camp.
They were on the list, but they stayed in the camp, and even they prophesied in the camp, it says. Read 27, 28. This is kind of
A
interesting.
young man ran and told Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Joshua, the son of Nun, who from his youth had been Moses' assistant, answered, "My lord Moses, stop them."
It states a young man ran to tell Moses what Edad and Medad were doing. Yehoshua said, Moses, stop them. Yehoshua was always protecting Moses. That's why Moses asked Yehoshua. We'll read 29.
But Moses replied, "Are you so zealous to protect me? I wish all of Adonai's people were prophets. I wish Adonai would put his spirit on all of them."
Moses really had no idea what Adonai was doing. Because what does he do? He says, then I wish Adonai would put his spirit on all of them. That would take more pressure off of Moses.
True.
And guess what Moses was looking for? More help. Read 30 through 35, please.
Moses and the leaders of Israel went back into the camp, and Adonai sent a wind which brought quail from across the sea and let them fall near the camp, about a day's trip away on each side of the camp and all around it, covering the ground to the depth of 3 feet. The people stayed up all that day, all night, and all the next day gathering the quail. The person gathering the least collected 10 heaps. Then they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. But while the meat was still in their mouth, before they had chewed it up, the anger of Adonai flared up against the people, and Adonai struck the people with a terrible plague. Therefore the place is called... You going to read that?
I'm getting a voice
Oh, that's all right.
call message.
That's all right. Anyway, the English version is Graves of Greed, because they buried the people who were so greedy. From that place, the people traveled to Hazerat, and they stayed there.
Sorry, folks, but my hearing aids were talking to me about what come on my phone, which is 30 feet away from me, and it was telling me stuff that I should have had these things off. I apologize. Now, the word that you were looking at is... Yeah. How do you pronounce that, George?
Aviv.
Yeah. Hata Habib. That's George said. She's got it in front of her. Huh? But anyway, the people showed their greed with the quails. 3 feet deep, it says.
That's quite bad.
And people think, well, yeah, they ran out. They're so excited. They got as money as they could, and they stored it. Well, they just didn't take what they needed. No, their greed took over. A terrible plague struck them, and the ones who were so greedy died, so they called the place Graves of Greed. In other words, what's the name, George?
Aviv.
Havit Saviv. That's what George says. From there, they traveled to Hazerat and stayed there. And that's where 11 stops, isn't it?
Yep. That's the end of 11.
That's the end of 11. Now, in all reality, most of the preachers I've ever heard preach have never really dug deep enough to find out or to preach. We're not preachers. We're not teachers. We're just 2 old people. Well, 3 of us with the one on the other side of the table who hunt for truth. And the truth is, what we've been saying tonight from Adonai is, think about it though. People look at the Hebrews as greedy for getting all those quail. But if you only ate bread for 2 years and a whole bunch of quail came in and you could eat quail, would you go out and take a couple extra? Make sure your freezers are full? No, they didn't have freezers back then, but you get the idea. Weren't the Hebrews doing the same thing that most likely we would do? Get the extra.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure we had enough. But that's not what they were supposed to do. Interesting topic. Interesting writing from Adonai to and through Moses, called Numbers 11. George, can you believe it that we went through Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and now we're halfway through Numbers? We got one more book and we're through with the Torah.
We still have the Torah covered.
Yep.
A lot of truth has been revealed.
That's true.
I like what George says. I turn it around, but every time we do that, the computer
You're scared people.
He said a lot of truth has been told in those 3.5 books so far.
Mm-hmm. A lot of things I'm sure people have never seen.
Oh, if you haven't caught what we've been talking about since Bereshit 1, or Genesis 1. Go back in.
Oh, in you. Well, if you want to go to YouTube, if you have YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Back in YouTube, you can
Yeah,
find
you
where
can
we
find
started
them all.
on Bereshit or Genesis 1, and all of them are stated there. All the topics
Every lesson.
and all the truth of what Adonai wants spoken,
Yep.
wants
all
brought
there.
out to the world, because preachers and teachers, preachers, priests, and rabbi teachers are not doing it.
Yep. But yeah, if you look under, because George Nelson's a big, popular name, obviously. But if you look under George Nelson live Facebook videos, it'll be more specific, and you'll find
Everyone.
from day one, from before and since we've started going through Genesis, but all the teachings prior to that as well.
We're on the book about Yeshua.
Yeah, that and
Well, you
all
got-
these lessons from Genesis on are all there.
Oh, the ones from Genesis on. It's logical to look at what we went through before we started in Genesis, because George and I have talked about this many times. It was like laying a foundation of what Adonai wanted us to do, and then he wanted us to start from Bereshit 1. And like George told me a number of times, he says, I was wondering what in the world you were going way back there for. But it was Adonai who wanted us to do this, because he wants truth being brought out. Now, whether you like the truth, want to believe the truth, or you want to go in that, eat that frosting on their flavored cake into their damnation, that's your choice. We can't live your life. But we're here every Tuesday. Unless with tragedy. Something happens where we don't get a computer. But we're here trying to put out what Adonai wants us to put out about the truth in his book.
Yep. Just like and share it, guys.
Yeah. And hopefully Daryl will get a hold of me before long. Might be in one of those 20 things I haven't looked up yet, but God bless.
Have a good week,
May
guys.
Adonai shine on each one of you. Ann Brown says blessings. Thank you. We hope that Adonai blesses every one of you that listen, to the point that you hunt for truth. You don't just take our word for it, but you hunt for truth with a true study, not the brainwashing kind. I better get off of here.
Have a good week, guys.